Hello and welcome to a Chapbook review where I talk about Mr. Purple by WH Chizmar, which is currently only available as a Deluxe Chapbook from Lividian Publications. You had to be a patron of Brian James Freeman to get this, but it was limited to 500 copies. It is signed by Chizmar and Chadbourne. I'll talk more about the production details in a minute. The story itself is disappointing. I get what he's going for, and he misses the mark. At least I get what he's going for terror-wise, story-wise. I did not get what he was going for by Jeff Terry's Epiphany, but we'll get more on that later. That's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. So it's about Benjamin. He is a software developer and now a game tester in his free time. It's not his free time. He's actually doing it for a job. It's for the company Vapor, which is very much a heavy-handed version of Steam and Valve. But anyways, he's testing a game called Mr. Purple, which is about a very, very ugly dude who has... There are 3 rules to this game. He does not like mirrors. There's nothing in his pocket. Let him catch you. If there's nothing in his pocket sounds like the dumbest rule ever, you're right, because it is. And they will touch upon what's in his pocket at the end of the novel, and it's incredibly anticlimactic, which is, that's what I mean. It misses the mark. I understand what it's going for. It's going for kind of a Five Nights at Freddy's Slender Man, I guess more so Slender Man approach of kind of this creepypasta being, it's almost Lovecraftian in a way, that is going to just haunt you and hunt you down in this game. You know, he's there to freak you out. You get a glimpse of him and it's too late. And just the style, I think, is where it falls apart. Chizmar writes this in like present tense third person, which is a choice. It's hard to feel the terror. It's hard to feel Benjamin's thoughts when it's third person like this. You're from the outside looking in. And so it's a lot of, instead of doing show, don't tell, it's a lot of tell, but not much show. Plus, there are occasionally these fourth wall breaks, like where it says, today is Friday, in case you haven't already guessed that by taking a good look at them. And it just it feels clunky to me. Now, to be fair, W.H. Chizmar has published more than I have published in my entire life, so I can't probably speak too much about it, but I don't know. I've read lots of books, and this one feels like a clunky one. It feels like a clunker, which is a shame because production-wise, it is superb. And we're talking like very nice quality paper. We're talking tons of Chadbourne art, just absolute tons. There's Mr. Purple for you on a bathroom stall. We're going to get more on that in just a minute. There's Mr. Purple, not in a bathroom stall. He is a scary dude. Like there's a ton of artwork, and it's fantastic. But the story itself falls flats. So Jeff Terry, over at the Jeff Word, did his own review of this, and he was a lot harsher than I was. But on his Monday chats, the Jeff Word, he had an epiphany about that we're going to talk about in just a minute. And the epiphany is one that I did not pick up on while reading Mr. Purple. But boy, are we going to talk about it. His videos are monetized. Mine are not monetized, so I don't mind talking about it because I'm not going to get demonetized. I'm not making any money to begin with. Anyways, let's talk about Jeff's assessment. Jeff's assessment is that Mr. Purple is a penis. That the entirety of Mr. Purple is a dick joke. And there's Mr. Purple. He's got a very phallic-shaped head. And he even mentions it. He says, the mushroomish shape that is undeniably phallic. And he first encounters the drawings of Mr. Purple and encounters Mr. Purple in a bathroom. And, I guess I can see where he's coming from. I hope it's not just a giant dick joke, because that would kind of make it even more infuriating. Like, it's just, stylistically, it kind of falls apart for me. The style of it kind of ruins the idea of the story, of this kind of Slender Man creepypasta story. And if Chizmar was implying, subtly or not so subtly, I suppose, this dick joke and he was in on the joke, then that's even more infuriating because it's like, at that point, it's like writing a short story where you're just going to rickroll the guy. It's like that you're doing a professional job with a professional publication. So I hope that's not the case. If it is not the case and it's unintentionally a very phallic character, a one-eyed monster. I mean, he literally has one eye, two pupils, one eye. And it's unintentional, then Chizmar might have to work through that stuff. And Jeff Terry also pointed out that Chizmar's previous novella that he published, which he co-wrote with his father, was Widow's Point, which is about a lighthouse, which is a very phallic building. But we're not going to dive into that. I ain't got the time for that. You don't have the time for that. Maybe we do have the time for that. It'll be its own video, though. So like I said, I hope it's not the case, just because, I don't know, dedicating a professional publication like this to a dick joke really just ruins it even more than the style already did. If it was unintentional, then it actually kind of makes the novel or the novella funny, but not in a good way, I guess. Like, it's, I don't know. Sometimes artists write songs without realizing that the song is another song, you know? And they get sued over it. And that's not necessarily the case here, but sometimes you write about Mr. Purple without realizing that Mr. Purple is, in fact, penis. And, you know, it makes for some very fun dissection of this novella. But unfortunately, I don't want to dissect this novella. Another topic that Jeff Terry did talk about in his review, which I will touch upon, and in this regard, I will defend Brian James Freeman, is that Jeff Terry was talking about how it's like a level of privilege that WH Chizmar was this first deluxe guest author. There have been guest author chapbooks in the past, Joe Hill, Bev Vincent, even Richard Chizmar, but this is the first that's like a deluxe style, just jam-packed full of artwork. It's got a slightly bigger trim size than the other ones, I believe. And he was very disappointed that this was the first deluxe chapbook. And I get it. I understand that disappointment because there are lots of other short stories that could have gotten the treatment, and this missed the mark when it did get the treatment. However, Jeff Terry, I believed that it was Richard Chizmar, W.H. Chizmar's father, who kind of strong-armed Brian James Freeman into publishing this. And maybe it was. I don't know. My rebuttal for that is I don't think it was. One thing you have to remember about Billy Chizmar, or W.H. Chizmar, apart from being Richard Chizmar's son, is that he grew up in front. That sounds weird when I say it like that. Brian James Freeman has watched him grow up. Freeman had been with Cemetery Dance for 20 years. And so, you know, I don't think it's necessarily his father strong-arming him into publishing this. I think it's more of, you know, if you had a nephew or if you had a friend, someone that you've watched grow up, like I said, nephew or son, and you wanted them to succeed, because who doesn't want to have their family, even though they're not blood family, he's probably looking at them like an uncle-nephew relationship, and who doesn't want to have their nephew succeed? So when you are a publisher and your nephew writes a novella, I think that is kind of the rationale behind it. So I don't necessarily think, I guess to that degree, it's a level of privilege. I mean, yes, it technically involved Richard Chizmar still, because if Chizmar didn't own Cemetery Dance and Brian James Freeman didn't work for Cemetery Dance, they wouldn't know each other. But I don't think it's necessarily the same level of privilege as like, oh, Dad bought me a spot on this chapbook. I think it's more of him being privileged to know Brian James Freeman. And like I said, Brian James Freeman has known Billy Chizmar his entire life. So when he comes forward with this idea and says, hey, I wrote this short story, almost a short novella, and you own Lividian Publications, you're going to give him that chance. Like I said, unfortunately, I think that chance kind of failed. It was very much a disappointing read. But if W.H. Chizmar goes places and if he becomes a huge author, this might be a hot commodity one day. Who knows? So like I said, you can't really buy this currently. Oh, there is a detail. This is okay. So, thank you for watching. I'm going to show you a detail in a minute that does kind of spoil things. It's an image. So if you don't want that spoiler, thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing, and we will see you around. But if you don't mind seeing that possible spoiler of what the ending is, I'm going to show it to you. So there is a detail that I thought was really cool on Glenn Chadbourne's part because it wasn't explicitly mentioned in the novella. So in the end, just like, a Slender Man story or creepypasta story, Ben runs into Mr. Purple in the real world. And what does he have in his pocket? He has a marker. He has a Sharpie, which is, like I said, it's the dumbest thing. Like that's not scary. It's stupid. And it kind of repeats the cycle of like he does a doodle of Mr. Purple like he saw in the game in the beginning. And then they vanish, like Lovecraftian vanish. But one thing that's really cool is that he, and I don't, maybe it was mentioned in the text, but I don't think it was. When he's sort of possessed by Mr. Purple in a way, Glenn Chadbourne has two pupils in Benjamin's eye, which is how Mr. Purple's eye is. He's got two pupils in one eye. Can't really tell in that image there. And I don't think that was explicitly said in the novella. I noticed that in the image, and I'm like, that is really cool. So seriously, props to Glenn Chadbourne. He knocked it out of the park. I just think the story had poor execution. But anyways, that's just me kind of ranting on Mr. Purple. If you want to find a copy, you will have to go in the secondary market. I don't think you're going to have difficulty finding it, though, because everyone I've heard from also had a similar opinion about Mr. Purple. So I know there are several people out there that are trying to sell their copies. But seriously, check it out if you want. I'm more excited about the next guest author, who, if you are a patron of Brian James Freeman, you already know who that author is. If you are not a patron, you should definitely consider it because it's one of my favorite authors. It's one of Brian James Freeman's favorite authors, too. He's published a lot of his works. Hint, hint. And I can't wait to see what Lividian does for that author with the chapbook treatment. So seriously, check that out. Become a patron for Brian James Freeman. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.